Welcome to ELA Plus, your YouTube guide to English studies and the English language arts. I'm Brian E. Denton. In today's video lesson, we're going to learn about the iambic metrical foot, or the Iamb. The Iamb can rightfully be considered the heartbeat of the English language. I say this because it is by far the most common metrical foot. So common, in fact, that Robert Frost once wrote that, in terms of meter, quote, "There are virtually but two, strict iambic and loose iambic," end quote. Very well then, let's get linguistically cardiovascular, shall we? The first thing we're going to do in this video lesson is define the term Iamb. We'll do this by taking consideration of various reference books and how they define the term, and we'll use these different definitions to formulate our own definition. After that, we'll scan a selection from a poem by 18th century English poet Susanna Blamire so we can get a visual representation of what iambs look like. After that, we'll go into a little bit about the history of the term, specifically where some scholars think the word iamb comes from. This is a very interesting part of the video lesson. I think you'll like it. And after all that, we'll conclude with some comprehension questions. Now, before we get started, you're going to hear a lot in this video lesson about the term metrical feet or metrical foot. If you don't know what a metrical foot is, please see our video lesson Foot, ELA Plus Guide to English Language Arts Terms. It's going to clear that up for you. For those of you who do know what a foot is, you're ready. So let's get to it. What you see over in the box are various definitions provided by a selection of well-regarded reference books. The first is from The Making of a Poem, a Norton Anthology of Poetic Forms. They tell us that an iamb is, quote, "a unit of measure in poetry, a short syllable followed by a long one." Next up, we have A Poetry Handbook, a prose guide to understanding and writing poetry by Mary Oliver. By the way, if you want a short and sweet introduction to writing and understanding poetry, then this is your best bet. I highly recommend picking this book up. Serves as a great introduction. At any rate, Mary Oliver defines an iamb as one light stress followed by one heavy stress. Timothy Steele, in his book All the Fun's in How You Say a Thing, an explanation of meter and versification, he shares that an iamb is a disyllabic foot with the sequence unaccented, accented. Finally, we have the ever-trusty Norton Anthology of Poetry. They define an iamb as a foot of two syllables, with an unstressed syllable followed by a stressed one. So what can we gather from these definitions? We can gather that everyone seems to agree that an iamb shares two characteristics. One, it's two syllables in length, and two, the first syllable is unstressed, and the second syllable is stressed. ELA Plus would therefore define an iamb as a two-syllable foot consisting of one unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable. So with this definition in mind, that an iamb is a two-syllable foot consisting of one unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable, let's take a look at some iambic poetry so we can get a visual representation of what we're talking about. What you now see over in the box is a selection from a poem by the 18th century English poet Susanna Blamire called Stoklewath or the Cumbrian Village. This poem is 1,154 lines long, and almost all of them are written in the foot of iambic meter. So really, any selection of this poem would suffice as an example, but these are my favorite lines, so that's why we're going to read them right now. On her fair hand she leaned her drooping head, and many a tear bedewed the page she read. 'Twas Milton's Paradise, the book I knew, once my own profile on the leaf I drew, and wrote beneath this truth-dictated line, "With thee conversing, I forget all time." I'll link to the entire poem down in the description in case you want to read more. And if you've ever been curious about what the poetry of 18th century Northern English Romanticism sounds like, and who among us hasn't once wondered that, let's be real, then this poem is a great place to start, so do check it out. For now though, let's do a little bit of scansion of these lines so we can get a visual representation of what iambs look like. Here you can see that all 6 lines are divided into 5 feet, and all of the feet, except for one, are iambs. Do you see why these feet are iambs? Recall our definition. An iamb is a two-syllable foot consisting of one unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable. So let's take a closer look at just the first line to solidify our understanding of the iamb. Here we read, "On her fair hand she leaned her drooping head." Now, if we slow down this line and we divide it into its metrical feet, its iambs, this is what it sounds like. On her fair hand she leaned her drooping head. It's been said, with good reason, that the sound of the iamb is the sound of a heartbeat. Listen closely. A heartbeat sounds something like dun-dun. So let's read it again. On her, dun-dun. Fair hand, dun-dun. She leaned, dun-dun. Her drew, dun-dun. Bing head, dun-dun. So this is going to be a good way for you to remember what an iamb is. Just remember that an iamb makes the sound of a heartbeat. As you can see, all the feet in this selection, except for one, are iambic. Can you identify the one foot in these 6 lines that is not an iamb? Let me know down in the comments. Aside from this one line, almost the entire poem is written in iambs. In fact, you'll learn as you go deeper into your English studies that most poetry is indeed written in iambs. As the literature on the subject tells us, the iamb is by far the most common metrical foot in the English language. Timothy Steele says that there is at least 3 reasons for this. The first concerns our tendency to space stresses at roughly equal intervals and to distinguish, for purposes of clear articulation, between stress levels of adjacent syllables. The second reason concerns the shape or morphology of English words. As Noam Chomsky and Morris Hale demonstrate in their Sound Pattern of English, most English words of more than one syllable have alternating stress. By no means always does this alternation entail rhythm that rises iambically from lighter to heavier syllables. Yet, regardless of whether the rhythm of this or that word rises or falls, the alternation contributes, in conjunction with the third and final factor, to the prevalence of iambic meters. The third factor is the comparatively uninflected or analytic character of our language. In more compressed synthetic languages, inflectional suffixes are frequently added to the stems of words to indicate their grammatical functions and relationships. Middle and modern English, in contrast, mainly convey meaning not by word endings, but by word order. They entail arranging words in such significant sequences as adjective noun and subject verb object, and make liberal use of particles. Particles and pronomials are usually weakly stressed, and the mixing of these words with lexically weightier words like nouns and verbs inclines English towards iambic rhythm. Now some of you may be interested to learn how we came to name this popular foot. Well, like so much in Western civilization, the Greeks gave us the name. Iamb comes from the Greek iambos. Here's what Timothy Steele says about the word's origins. One guess about the term's origin concerns the fact that, in ancient Greece, iambic verse was associated with the cult of Demeter and was initially employed for satire. Apollodorus reports that after the kidnapping of her daughter Persephone by Hades, Demeter searched everywhere for her child, rejecting rest and consolation until, coming to the palace of Silius in Eleusis, she laughed at an off-color joke cracked by an old crone named Iamb. In honor of this woman who had coaxed the goddess from her grief, the Greeks applied iambic to humorous or mocking verse. And because such verse usually alternated between short and long syllables, iambic came to denote this pattern. And that's our video lesson on the metrical foot we call the iamb. The first thing we did in this video lesson is define the term. Then we looked at a visual representation of iambs in the poetry of the 18th century poet Susanna Blamire. After that, we discuss for just a little bit the history of the term iamb, specifically how we came to name this metrical foot. And all this should be enough to install into your brain that an iamb is a two-syllable foot of one unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable. But just to make sure that you've got it, let's now go to our comprehension questions. Number 1. What is an iamb? Number 2. Which of these following words is an iamb? Intervene, only, avoid, and happily. And number 3, where do we believe that the term iamb comes from? And that concludes our video lesson on the iamb. It's part of our ongoing series, ELA Plus Guide to English Language Arts Terms. If you enjoyed this video lesson, please consider liking the video. If you'd like to learn more about the English language, you can subscribe to the channel. It'd be much appreciated, and I'd be happy to spend some time with you here on YouTube. As always, I'm Brian E. Denton, and this is ELA Plus, your guide to English studies and the English language arts. Until our next lesson, keep reading and take care of yourselves and others.